of any of those things. So that brings me to talking a little bit more directly to Akabal people. So people who are born under the energy of Akabal are very awesome, honestly. They I have a lot of people in my friend, like I have a lot of friends who are Akabal. I always get really along with Akabal people. Um, because they're so awesome. They're so unique and they have a set of really beautiful traits. Firstly, Akabal people are very smart. Akabal people are very interesting to talk to. They do talk a lot, but that's okay. Sometimes they get really excited when they're like sharing something, and Akabal people can talk a lot. But apart from that, Akabal people have a a trait that is very interesting. So for us, for the rest of human beings, we have, you know how we have the tendency, they say like the right side of your brain is more developed or the left side of your brain, like you're right-sided, you're left-sided. When it comes to the people have the tendency more are more artistic, and then there's other people who are more logical, more scientific, more you know, like who are more like, yeah, structured and based on science and whatnot. So Akabal people have the trait, the very unique trait, that because they're the center between all things, like they're the center between all dualities, for them that's not true. They don't tend towards one or towards the other. Both sides of their brain are equally developed and they're good at everything. That's basically what Akabal is. They're just good at everything that they do. So at school, they often can be easily good students, or at work, they can be easily good workers, regardless of their career. When it comes to Akabal, they have a wide range of options when it comes to choosing what they want to do for a living because of how good they are at every single thing that they would want to do for a living. So um a cabal is great if you put them to do like science, they'll do a great job at it. If you put them to be creative and do art, they'll do a great job at it. Whatever you put them to do, they're generally going to do a pretty good job at it. They're going to, even if they don't know the topic, they're going to learn it really fast because they're very smart, and then they're going to excel at whatever it is that they do. What's the catch though? So a cabal people, even though they're good at everything, that doesn't mean everything they do fulfills them or makes them happy. So the problem that I've noticed a lot of Akabal people have, and one of my best friends since I'm a kid is Akabal. Um, and I always share her story during the challenge because she's the most Akabal person I've probably ever met. And so we had this like thing happen to us, when you're like turning 18 and it's time to start choosing if you want to go to university, what do you want to study in university? Like what career path are you going to follow? Which, when you're 18, you're so young, I don't know how people choose so young, but so many people in our class, because we went to school together, it already had like so much clarity. People were like, I want to be a lawyer, that's it, period. Or I want to be a psychologist, that's my thing, I know it, and there's not much thinking to do. But this friend of mine, she was so lost. She was freaking out all of the senior year because she was like, I have no idea what I want to study yet. And so um, I talked a lot about that with her. And eventually, she finally decided to study. It was so weird. I don't even remember what the career is called. Something like textile engineering or something weird like that. I don't know exactly what that means, but she started studying it, right? Like she went to university, she started studying it. And then all of a sudden, she's calling me all the time. And she's telling me, I love it. Oh my God, I just started. I love the classes. The teachers are great. I was just learning about I don't even remember what she was learning about because it's something I don't fully understand. But she was like, I was just learning about this topic and it was so amazing. And I was learning about textiles and the composition of fabrics and some weird stuff like that. And she was like, it's amazing. I love it. Um, yeah. I don't know. She's like, did you know that cotton come like something about cotton and something about whatever, all kinds of fabrics? And I was like, okay, cool. I'm happy. You had such a hard time, but I guess you chose right. And I'm glad that you chose correctly because you had such a hard time choosing. So I'm happy. And she was like, yeah, no, I totally, totally made the right call. Like, I'm so glad you helped me. Thank you for the help. Like, I'm happy. And I was like, great. Okay, we did it. She did it. And then I don't know, it's probably like 6 months in. She's like, I hate it. She's like, I don't want to do this anymore. She's like, I thought I liked it. And she was like, the thing is, I do like it. Like, it is interesting and all, but it's all very like, it was all very sciencey. And she was like, of course, I love that. And I'm really good at it. I'm like already one of the top students in my class because she was always a top student in anything she did. She's like, it is interesting. I am learning, but I don't know. I don't know. I have this feeling that I made the wrong call. Is this really what I'm passionate about? Am I really going to be happy doing this for the rest of my life? Is this really what I want? And I was like, well, we're 18. We just got started. There's still time if you want to switch one time. That's okay. Like a lot of people switch careers after a few months. Like that's fine. You didn't lose so much. So it's okay. Like let's think about it if you want to keep going or not. Um, so she decided to switch careers and she started studying business. Yeah, that was it. She started studying business. Then, like, so she switched to business and she loved it. It was like her first couple of weeks, she was calling me and telling me that she has this amazing teacher, that this was definitely the right call, that business is so great, that this makes so much more sense for her. This is like a clear career path. She can see herself doing this. Like, this is fun. I'm learning a lot. This is interesting. I think it was 1 year in. She's like, I don't want to study business anymore. It's like, okay, what's up now? And she's like, no, I like it. I'm good at it. Again, I'm the top student in my class again. And I do find it interesting and everything. But the thing is, I just don't, nah, I don't, she's like, I don't know if this is it. This is not what I'm passionate about. Again, I can't seem to find what I'm really passionate about, what's going to fulfill me. So she's like, I think I've done engineering, I've done business, and I feel like maybe I'm a very artistic person. Maybe I should do something that has to do more with art, like fashion design or painting. And I was like, yeah, I mean, you're great at that because as I told you, she's good at everything because she's a cabal. She paints the most beautiful paintings. Her house is full of her own paintings. And I'm like, oh my God, you should be a famous artist. So she was like, yeah, maybe I'll just like go more towards art and I'll just start taking some painting classes and courses while I think about if I want to, go to a different career. So she starts painting. Then that was just like 2 months and she was like, I don't think I'm gonna make a living. I don't want to be a painter. She's like, I do paint for fun at home as a hobby, but she's like, I don't want to be painting like as a job. She's like, I can't. She's like, I love it, but again, I can't do this. um I don't know, she must have switched like 7 times or something. And yeah, she switched career paths so many times. She spent like, I don't know, like 6 or 7 years just going into something, telling me, okay, this is it, spending 1 year in it, and then going, no, no, I don't want to do this. So then I told her, okay, you know what? I think you need an intervention. I think your problem is that you're a cabal. That's just the problem here. And I was explaining to her that it's not that a cabal people are undecisive. That's not the problem. It's not that you guys are undecisive. The problem is Acabal people sometimes have such a hard time finding what's the thing that's actually going to make them fulfilled, what they're passionate about, as she was describing it, what's going to make them happy. And so it's sometimes a cabal thing, people start things and then don't finish them. And the reality of it is it looks for the rest of us, the outsiders. Like if you hear my friend's story, you might think, oh, she was jumping from thing to without being able to decide. But the reality is that she was not jumping from thing to thing to thing to thing to thing to thing to thing. The reality of it is she was jumping, and now pay attention to that, Akabal, from the right side of her brain to the left side of her brain, to the right side of her brain, to the left side of her brain. What do I mean by that? Like a good Akabal, she has both sides developed, but Akabal people have a hard time finding balance in life. So she was going into engineering first, into business first, and then this big part of her started to complain, which is her creative side started to complain that, she's missing art, she's missing creativity. But then instead of adding creativity into what she was already doing, she went to the extreme opposite way. She's like, now I'm going to be an artist. I'm going to be a painter. I'm going to be a fashion designer. I'm only going to do creativity. Once she started doing that, at first she felt great. You notice how every time she felt really great for like a few months, but before she actually started to realize that was not the thing, at first she felt great because this part of her brain, the creative side, that was abandoned for a couple of years, was finally happy, finally able to express itself. But after some time doing only creativity, her other side of the brain, the more logical, the more scientific one, started to complain like, I'm equally important. What about me? Now you're only doing creative stuff. So then she actually went back to something really sciencey or really businessy. Um, After a year of that, she went back to creativity. After creativity, like logic, creativity, logic, creativity, logic. And so she, what happens to a cabal is that they have to nurture, because they're the duality or the center between many different things, there's many parts to them. The rest of us are a little more, I'm a creative person, that's it. So it's a little easier for the rest of us in that sense. Or I'm a very logical person, that's it, period. But a cabal has many different areas to themselves. And so what they have to do is they have to find something in life, that the things that they do in life can be the balance between those two sides of them, right? That whatever they find in life can be logical, can allow them to apply their science, their business skills, their logic, their ability to think, with like the more scientific, logical mind, while simultaneously allow them to express themselves creatively, spiritually, because Akabal people are also very spiritual. So they need things that also make them feel like they are being nurtured spiritually. So something that nurtures them spiritually, allows them to think creatively, allows them to express themselves in this creative, artistic, beautiful ways. So when they find something that incorporates every part of them, then they're feeling really fulfilled. Then they're feeling really happy. Then they're like, okay, this I'm passionate about. But the problem is because they're extremes, they often jump to the extremes. Like my friend, she went straight for science, straight for business, or straight for being an artist. And it took her a while to find something that would actually incorporate every part of her so that every part of her could feel nurtured, because like Cabal people have like 50 different parts to them. And if they just like nurture one single one of them, obviously the other parts to them will be feeling abandoned, or will have this itch to, I really want to be used, I really want to be expressed. And then, if they don't, then Cabal people will feel kind of unhappy, even though they are, as I said, good at everything. Like my friend, she was always the top student in any career. She was always doing the best than everybody else. So just something to think about for a cabal is not necessarily only something that happens to them in their careers, although career is a big place where that can manifest, obviously. But in life in general, they have to always, in their daily life and the things that they do, they have to find ways to, again, nurture every part of them, because there's many different parts of them. So let's keep talking about duality. Cabal people are also their keyword is balance. What they have to find is balance. But Akabal people are also a little bit extreme, because of course, strengths and weaknesses. If your strength, if the place where you thrive, where you're happy, where you find yourself is in the center between the things in balance, what's going to be your weakness is the lack of balance, obviously, right? And so Akabal people often start their life not having a lot of balance. And this can manifest in so many different ways, but maybe I'll talk about one important way right now. Uh, Akabal people can be a little extreme with their emotions. They're just emotionally extreme people. So what happens is that, and again, every time I'm talking about Akabal, I always think about this one friend because she's just, she's a perfect Akabal. She's the model Akabal. Everything fits so perfectly to her. So Akabal people will just be like sitting there being so sweet, so loving, so nice, and you're having the greatest time, and they're so, everything is going great, and you're being so loving and whatnot. And then something happens and somebody says something that's triggering for them. And in one split second, they go from sweet, nice, chill, calm, happy, relaxed to poof, like super explosive, like very, very quickly. There's like not even a time for a transition. They go from calm to exploding in a split second without any transition in between. So this always happened to my friend too. We were like having the best time or something, and then I don't know, a family member, like her mom would say something that would trigger her. And she would immediately start screaming and banging doors and getting like, I hate you, I hate everybody. So she was really emotionally extreme in that sense. And I know a lot of Acabal people who straight, like they immediately go for starting to cry and freaking out or getting really angry or getting really emotional about a situation when a situation arises. So that's another way in which Acabal people need to find balance. When they feel emotions, they always feel emotions to the extreme, whether those emotions are good or bad. If they're happy, they're like ecstatic about it. If they're like, feeling good, they're feeling super mega good. But if they're feeling sad, they're maybe having like a mini mental breakdown because of how sad they're feeling. Or if they're feeling angry, then they're not angry, then they're furious. So they have this thing where they can be a little bit too extreme in the way in which they feel emotions, and they can switch from one to another very quickly. I've known Acabal people who, go from sweet to explosive in 1 second, or who are like in the middle of a big fight with their family and they're screaming and everything. And then the fight's over, 5 minutes pass by, and they're going around super happy as if nothing happened. And I'm like, wow, did you get over that pretty quickly? So it's like they can be very extreme in the way in which they experience their emotional side. So I heard this story once, and I always share it during the challenge because I think it's such a great story. And I heard it in like this morning talk show from Guatemala. And one of the hosts was saying that she heard this beautiful metaphor, this beautiful story. And the story goes like this. And if you've been to the challenge before, then you know the story already. So it's the coffee story. So basically, there's a guy, right? And he goes to a coffee shop and he gets a coffee to go. Uh, so he gets his coffee to go. He walks back to the street. He's going around with his coffee, walking on the street with his coffee, and all of a sudden, another guy on the street trips and falls on top of the guy, pushes the guy, and all of the coffee just flies everywhere. The lid opens, the coffee flies everywhere, and now there's coffee all over the street. So the question that I'm supposed to ask you at this point of the story is, why did his coffee spill? Like, why did the coffee fall out all over the place? And many people will say, well, because I don't know, the other guy tripped and they both fell, so the coffee fell out. Or maybe the coffee did not have a lid, perhaps. So maybe if it had a lid, it wouldn't have spilled out. I don't know. Or maybe it's because, the guy should have been paying more attention, or whatever it is. That's why the coffee spilled. But the real answer to the question is no. The reason the coffee spilled is because he had coffee with him. He was holding coffee. If he would have been holding orange juice, what would have spilled would have been orange juice. If he would have been holding water, what would have spilled would have been water. So what's like the metaphor in the story is that nothing can come out of you that you were not already holding. Nothing can spill out of you that wasn't already inside of you. So basically, um, the question of the story is, what do you actually want to be holding, so that regardless of if somebody pushes you, that's what spills out. And so the question is, what can the guy do to avoid that the coffee spills next time that he's on the street walking around with a coffee? And the answer is not that he starts to walk by the wall and be more careful so that nobody can come close to him and touches him so that the coffee can't spill. The answer is not that he should get some bodyguards to walk around and protect him from anybody coming too close. Or the answer is not that now he should drink his coffee in the corner of the street alone and build the wall of bricks around himself so that nobody can touch him or his coffee. The answer is, if he doesn't want to spill the coffee, what he should do is he should get rid of the coffee. And I added one part of the story, which is he should switch it for cacao instead. That was not part of the original story. But basically, um, the idea is for Acabal people is not that, something can spill out of you that wasn't already inside of you. So in those moments when you're being a little bit emotionally extreme, when you can be explosive and all of that, what's coming out is not something that wasn't already there. So of course you want to find some techniques to help you in the moment, obviously. So like you want to find, there's 1 million techniques. So just find your favorite one. There's like the Mel Robbins count backwards from 5, or take a time out and go for a walk around the block before you continue having the conversation. Spend 20 minutes alone, or do some breathing techniques and to take some deep breaths next time before you answer. There's like 1 million things that you can do. So go and research what would be the one that works the best for you in those situations when you're feeling so bad. But at the same time, that's not the actual solution to the problem. That's just finding techniques to manage a problem that is deeper than what's happening in the moment. And the truth is, you're not going to solve the explosiveness problem while you're exploding. You're going to solve it in the in-between moments, right? And so the idea for Acabal is to work on themselves, not while the bad thing is happening, but in the moments when it's not happening, in the in-between moments, and to ask yourself, what is it inside of me? Where's the hurt? Where's the problem? That if I get triggered, I have all these emotions that are so strong because of whatever trauma maybe, or whatever issues you may have, that just come out and express themselves because I really need to let it out in that way. So you have to ask yourself the question, what is really happening inside of me, and what can I do to really work on actually healing that, on actually releasing that, on actually learning about how can I, truly heal myself from this. And maybe it's therapy, maybe it's something else. I don't know. There's a lot of alternatives. But the idea is to find the thing that you can work on so that you can actually be really okay internally and find that balance, because that lack of balance that sometimes Acabal experiences is also the source of it is also like all of the emotional things that they have been through. And so Acabal needs to balance themselves emotionally. The other thing is Acabal needs to be way more loving towards themselves. Please, Acabal, you have to start being way, 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 way more loving towards yourself if you're Acabal, because Acabal have this weird trait, which is mea culpa. Everything is terrible. I'm like the worst. So basically, they're very self-punishing people. Acabal has this trait of being very self-punishing. They have a really hard time getting over it if they make a mistake, for example. Like if they hurt someone, or if they make a mistake, or if they're the ones who did the bad thing or whatever, it's really hard for them to not feel guilt, to feel really bad, to be able to actually get over things. And so sometimes they're so self-punishing, this can actually give them some severe emotional distress, and also like just mental pain and all kinds of things like that. So a cabal needs to learn to be way more loving towards themselves, be way more gentle with themselves, do practices of like healing that part of themselves, which is to not like oh my God, I made a mistake and I'm the worst. I suck. I can't believe I made a mistake. I can never forgive myself. So they're like this, and that's not healthy, obviously. So a cabal, you're all good. You don't deserve that. You don't deserve to treat yourself that bad. Like sometimes it's like we treat ourselves so bad. Like I've caught myself, um like the other day, for example, I made a mistake and I can't remember what it was, but it was a very silly mistake. And I was like, how can I be so dumb? I was like, what's wrong with me? How can I be so dumb? And I caught myself saying that. And I was like, oh my God, if my husband or my sister or my niece or my friend would make a mistake, would I look at them and tell them, how can you be so dumb? What's wrong with you? You're so dumb. No, I would not. That's horrible. Of course, I would not do that. And so then I asked myself, why would I do that to myself? Like that's a horrible way to treat myself. Sometimes we should treat ourselves in the same with the same kindness and empathy and understanding that we use when it comes to treating other people, right? Because if your best friend would do something wrong or whatever, and she'd be there crying and saying like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that, you wouldn't be like, yeah, cry, you deserve to suffer. You deserve to feel this pain. You're a horrible person, bad person, you're so dumb. No, you would not. Obviously you would. I hope you would not do that, right? So the idea is a cabal also teaches us gentleness, kindness, being good towards ourselves, understanding. Again, it brings us back to understanding duality, understanding that we too are human beings, which means we too, like the rest of nature and like every other human being on this planet, also have the duality inside of ourselves. That's what Xibalbá, that's what the Popol Vuh, that's what the Maya tradition teaches us. We have light and we have darkness, right? We are filled with duality. We have the upper world inside of us, but also the underworld. And the point of darkness is that we have to stand in the center between the light and the dark. I want to actually share a story. So some months ago, I was so we have this program, maybe some of you are in it. It's called the Mayan Wisdom Journey, and it's a 1 year long program. And we offer like Zoom calls every 3 months for the people who are in it, but also there's this invitation that people can organize Zoom calls also themselves and have meetings if they want to keep discussing the journey. I can't remember which of the groups it was, but one of the groups has like a monthly call that they do where they get together and they just talk about how they're feeling and what they've experienced with some of the exercises that they are given in the journey. And I super randomly, I was in the community and I caught it. And I saw that they're about to have a Zoom call like in 10 minutes. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna join. And so I joined. And I was just so curious to listen in, to just sit there and say nothing and to just listen in and see what people are talking about. And there was this one woman who said something and it touched me so much. And also I was like, what? Because she said, I taught her that. And I was like, well, you just taught me that. So that's good that I taught you that because when she said it, it also hit me even harder, I guess. And I also started to practice it too. And so what she said is, I've been in this really long journey of trying to heal myself for like more than a decade at this point. And she said, I've tried everything. She's like, I'm in this desperate race to try to heal these parts of me that are not that are really hard for me to accept because they're in so much pain, they're in so much fear, depression, like all kinds of things like that. And she said to me, which I was like, whoa, that's a really profound thing. She's like, I want to thank you because I went to the challenge and I learned something and it changed my life. And she's like, because I had gone to therapy and I couldn't heal these parts. She said, I had also gone to all kinds of circles. She's like, I went to some Andean circles. I went to see like a private coach. Then I went to some women's circles. I went everywhere for the last 10 years. I've just been trying every single thing there is to do. And she said, but since I met you, you explained Xibalbá, she said. And I started thinking a lot about Xibalbá. And what Xibalbá taught me, she says, is that I was approaching my healing in the totally wrong way. What I was doing is I was in this big race to get rid of a part of me that I didn't like. For 10 years, I was like, I have to push this part out. I have to get rid of it. I have to get rid of this part of me now. This sadness that lives inside of me, I have to push it out, release it, get rid of it, get rid of the sadness. The sadness has to go. And she said, one time I heard you talking and something clicked inside of me, which is, what if I don't have to actually get rid of that part of me, like the sadness? She said, what if it's okay that I'm sad? And then she started thinking, wow, I've been through a lot, I've been through a lot in my life. I've been through all this trauma, all this pain, all these issues. She's like, maybe it's okay that I'm sad, maybe that's not that's number one, maybe that's normal. And number two, maybe I should stop going on this race, running and running and running in the path of trying to get rid of my sadness. How about I just give a big hug to my sadness and I acknowledge it and I say, it's okay that you're here. Like, I'm okay that I'm sad. It's okay that you're here. I'm going to give you a hug. And now we're not trying to get rid of you. Now I'm trying to give you love and nurture you. And I thought, that's so beautiful. I was so proud of her, first of all, but second of all, I thought that's such a beautiful thing to say and a beautiful thing to experience. And I was telling her, it's so funny you say I taught you that, because just hearing your story just taught me that at an even deeper level, because there's parts of me that I told her, you remind me that there's parts of me too that I also sometimes I'm like, no, I have to get rid of it. It's work on it, push it out, self-work. And a beautiful friend of mine also reminded me the other day of the importance of being gentle with ourselves. Sometimes we forget to be more gentle, which is another thing that Akabal teaches us, right? Like, we're on this constant fight, constant rush, constant race to, I have to heal, I have to get rid of it, I have to work on this, and she's like, when are you really gentle to yourself? And so I was thinking, this is so profound, because that's exactly what Akabal teaches, to stand in the center between the light and the darkness. What Mayan wisdom teaches us is that it's literally impossible to get rid of the darkness in general. What does it mean? It's like as if you would try to get rid of the night, and if you would try to get rid of the moon, if you only wanted it to be day all day long, that doesn't exist. You can try, but the moon is not going to go anywhere. You're not going to be able to actually get rid of the night, of the darkness, of the silence. The darkness, the silence, Xibalbá, remember what it actually comes here to teach us. What it really comes here to teach us is, how can I be okay when I am in the darkness? And that's what Nana Calixta told me, because I'm Kan. So she told me, you're like a snake. You'll have a lot of ups and downs in your life, because that's the movement of the snake, up and down and up and down. She told me, you can't help it. And nobody can help it. She told me, we all do this funny thing. In the Maya tradition, there's this greeting, or it's not a greeting necessarily, but you use it for saying goodbye to people, or you send a good message to people, and it goes like this. It says, I wish you good paths, clear paths, white paths, open paths, and flat paths. And so you're like telling people, I wish that your path will be flat, full of light, easy to walk. And she told me, it's ironic, because we all wish we had white paths, open paths, wide paths, flat paths to walk in life. But she was like, we wish each other that, but we should be maybe a little more realistic, because that's just not going to happen. She said, she's like, the paths of life are not always wide. They're not always white. They're not always clear. They're not always open. They're not always easy to walk. The paths of life look a little bit more like, like this, there is like, sometimes it's a little straight, but sometimes there'll be curves. Sometimes you'll go full circle, and it has all these kinds of shapes, the paths of life. And so basically, she said, It's so unrealistic that we expect the paths of life to be just easy to walk when we already know for nobody those paths are actually going to be easy to walk. So she said, what I want to tell you, she was talking to me specifically because I'm Kan, and for me, those paths are a little more curvy in general for Kan people than for others. So she was saying, what I want to tell you is it's so easy when you're on top, like when if life is like ups and downs, when you're in one of the ups, she said, it's so easy for you to feel like you're the queen of the world. Like right now everything is perfect, right now everything is great, I'm the queen of the world, everything is amazing, everything will always be amazing, it's easy. She said, but nobody needs to learn anything about how to be when everything is going great in life. When everything is going super amazing and great in life, we can all be great. We all act good when everything is great. We all feel happy when everything is great. We're all doing really well when everything is great. She said, what determines who you are as a person is not how you behave when everything is great. She said, what's going to determine who you truly are as a person, as a human, how successful you're going to be in achieving your goals, in being fulfilled and being happy, is not what you do when everything is easy and good, is what you do when the up stops and when you start falling down and once you're down. She said, so many people don't know how to fall down. You roll down, she said. You don't even fall down, you just completely roll down. She said, so you can't avoid the fall, right? That's always going to happen. But what you need to do is you have to learn how to fall. And it's like when you're up there, it's easy to do your thing. It's like, oh, right now I'm up and then up. I'm gonna meditate. Now I'm gonna exercise. Now I'm going to do these things that are good for me. Now I'm going to work on my projects. Now I'm going to work on my goals, she said. And sometimes when we fall, people stop doing that. That's when they stop meditating. That's when they stop exercising. That's when they stop working on their goals. She said, that's when you should do it double as hard. That's when you should do your healing practices double as hard. That's when you should do work on your goals double as hard. That's when you should, like do everything that is good for you double as hard as when you're up. Because when you're up is easy. She said, but when do you need the most to go to the river to bathe and to set an intention, or to when do you need the most to do nature therapy and hug a tree and tell all of your problems to the tree? Is not when you're up, it's when you're down. That's when you should do those things the most, she said. And if you learn how to fall, then even though there's still ups and downs, she said, maybe they can be a little bit more smooth because you know how to fall properly and you work on yourself at every time of life. So then it'll still be curvy, but it can be less extreme and it can be less curvy. Um, and I thought that was such a beautiful lesson. Calixta is so wise. And that was such a beautiful lesson. And that's just the reality of it, right? Like life will always have, there's absolutely nothing we can do about it. And there are parts of us that are natural to human beings, like sadness, anger, like grief, all of those emotions. They're not supposed to not exist. They exist for a reason. It's good that you feel anger if you feel anger in a healthy way. If you're being abused in an unfair situation in life, and that makes you angry, that's good. If you wouldn't feel angry, that probably would be kind of bad, because then, you're allowing for something to hurt you, right? The problem is when we have anger and it's out of control, because we, like a cabal, it happens to them, are so emotionally dysregulated. We just don't know how to control it, and it comes at the wrong times. There's nothing wrong with anger. Anger is good if it comes in the right moments in order to do you a service. Same thing with sadness. Like, how weird if somebody dies and you don't get sad. No, it just means you loved, right? Or if you're going through difficult situations in life and that makes you sad and it makes you grieve for yourself, for your happiness, that's okay. You know why? I'll tell you the story of the lobster, because, and I can't remember, I heard it years ago on a podcast or something, and I can unfortunately never quote the person who said it because I just can't remember where I heard it. I just know I heard it. But There's this story of lobsters, and lobsters are really interesting animals in the sense that when they're babies, they have a baby shell. And as they're growing up, they're supposed to break their shell, and then a new shell that's bigger grows where they fit in better. But this process is filled with excruciating pain for them. What do I mean by that? The way a lobster knows it's time to destroy their own shell, because they have to destroy their baby shell. It doesn't just fall out by itself. They have to destroy it. Is the old shell starts to hurt a lot. It starts to become so super mega painful. They know, that's how they know, okay, I have to take this off. It's time for me to take off this old shelf because I'm growing up now. I need to grow an even bigger shelf. But the person in the podcast was saying, so if that's true, if pain is the way that lobsters know it's time to break off my old shell, he said, imagine what a massive, massive, massive tragedy it would be if lobsters had access to painkillers. Or what a massive tragedy it would be if lobsters had access to alcohol or drugs or cigarettes or Netflix or social media or everything that we utilize to numb ourselves in the modern day world. So how many lobsters you think would instead just take a bunch of painkillers and then, I know, have to like deal with the fact that they live their life in pain. So now they need antidepressants because they're feeling bad that they're in pain, and they would just drink a lot every night to forget about their pain, or they would just numb themselves with social media, Netflix, all that stuff. And the idea is that I found that so funny, but so profound as well, because I said, yeah, what if lobsters had access to painkillers? Sometimes when we feel pain, that's not a bad thing. Like, we're so afraid of Shivalva, and we're so afraid of our own negative side, our own emotions, all that stuff. I'm so grateful for Shivalva. I'm so grateful for my own negative stuff. That's what I was telling you the other day. Sometimes I personally, which is a little weird to say this, but it's true for me at least, I personally prefer when bad things are really, really bad, because then I'm not going to get away with pretending like I don't have to work on it. Then when it's bad enough, I'm like, yeah, I have to do this. I have to actually improve in this area, or I have to get better. Things get, um, a little bad. And if we don't work on them, they get a little bit worse. And if we don't keep on not working on them, they get worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And that's the thing. Once you come to the point where everything is so bad and you're feeling depressed and you're feeling anxious and you're feeling, all of these difficulties and all of this pain, that's the part that's considered the darkness and the duality. And we hate that part so much. But don't we see that that's the part of us that's one of the most loving parts of us, because is the part of us that's reacting correctly to everything that we're going through, number one. And number two is the part of us that is letting us know, hello, it's time to work on this. It's like the pain that the lobsters feel. It's like, if the lobster would refuse to take off the shell, it would be good that the pain becomes stronger, because maybe that's going to make it take off the shell. That's how Shivalva works. It's like, we'll give you a tiny bit of pain, a tiny bit of darkness. If you keep ignoring it, we're going to make the lesson harder. Keep ignoring it, we're going to make it harder and harder and harder and harder, until at some point, hopefully, you will like hit rock bottom and finally be like, okay, I get it. I have to actually work on this. Pain is good. If I wouldn't have felt pain when I was in my past relationship, which was emotionally abusive, I might have never left it. And that to me is way scarier than any pain that I might have felt about it, if I wouldn't feel pain about the things in life that I'm not satisfied with, that are making me unhappy, then maybe I would stay, or I would continue doing those things that make me unsatisfied and unhappy. And that to me is way scarier than the pain I feel about them. Pain is good in that sense. It's a great teacher. And so, it's like what this woman said, like, it's okay that I feel sadness. Instead of trying to get rid of the anxiety, can try to get rid of the sadness, trying to get rid of the anger, trying to get rid of all the difficult emotions, the depression that we feel and whatnot, maybe we should not think that they are the problem. Those things are not the problem. They are the symptom of the actual problem. The pain is not ever the issue. The pain is always the symptom that points you in the direction of the actual issue. So, you know, it's like if you break your foot right now, you will feel pain, but pain is not the issue. The symptom is a symptom of that you broke your foot. And maybe it's good that the pain is there, or you might not go to the doctor and you might keep walking around in life with a broken foot and mess up your foot for the rest of times. So pain in that way lets you know, hey, please go to the doctor. You just broke your foot. You have to do something about it. It's an emergency. Do it now. So maybe the better question would be to ask ourselves when we are in the face of Xibalba, what is Xibalba trying to actually show me? What do I have to change about my life for real? Like, why am I feeling so bad? Why am I feeling so depressed? What's up? Like, of course, obviously there's different reasons for like things like depression. Sometimes you do have to take a look at it with a doctor. Maybe, your brain is not working properly, or like there's some dysregulation, things that you have to regulate. But in the vast majority of cases, usually when you're going through something really dark, that's just the symptom normally of, what's up with your life. So maybe it's time to ask yourself again the question, what are you going to do about it then, right? And it's not trying to get rid of the sadness or the pain, is trying to ask yourself, how can I live a better life, a life that will actually fulfill me, a life that will make me happy, a life that will be healthy for me? Should I exercise? Should I eat clean, good food? Should I go out and be more in harmony with nature? Should I find myself really positive relationships that will bring something really great into my life? Should my job and my career be something that makes me really passionate, that I'm really excited about, that is also very purposeful? And then if you're still depressed after that, then yeah, you should definitely go to a doctor, because that would be a little strange. But that's the point. That's what Akabal teaches us about the duality, how to stand in the center between the duality, to try to run towards the light where the darkness is still not figured out, is not going to work. And I think in this modern day world, we are so afraid of the darkness. Even like a lot of the new age spiritual movements are always talking about how everything is light, everything is good, everything is love, be happy all the time. I had a friend and he always told me his parents kind of traumatized him because they were hippies. And and he said every time I had problems, I was like, I broke up with my ex-girlfriend and I was like a teenager, or I was being bullied at school, or I had issues, and I would come to my parents crying and telling them that I feel bad about something. He said his parents would always tell him, no, you can't feel bad. There's a good lesson in there, and all you have to feel happy immediately. And that was his trauma in life. He always said what he wanted was to be allowed to feel bad and not to have that be blocked, right? So to feel bad is an okay thing. Not everything is light. There's also a lot of darkness. What we should look at it, how we should look at it instead is not always going to be light in the path. There's also going to be light darkness, but the darkness is the place where we can grow the most, so that when the light comes, it's going to be even brighter, more beautiful light. And this doesn't mean we're always going to live in a permanent state of light. Even when the light comes, there's still going to be some times where we have to go back to the darkness, and that's okay. We better learn how to be comfortable in the darkness, because it's just going to happen. We're all vulnerable, and there's so many good times ahead of every single one of us. You have not even met every person in your life who you're going to feel love for, and that's beautiful. You haven't had all the good surprises that you're going to have. You haven't had all of the happy moments you're going to have, but you also will have difficult times. You will have a fight with someone at some point in time. Like, you'll have conflict again. I don't know with who or when or why, but you will have conflict at some point again. You will have some problems arise. You might have some issues. That's true for you, but it's also true for me, and it's true for every single person in this room right now. So it's not about, the light or the darkness. It's about how we respond to it. And that when that time comes, that the darkness comes, not a bunch of coffee spills out of us because of it, but a bunch of cacao instead. So that's the lessons of a cabal. And so today we're drinking cacao with annatto paste. This is a very ancient recipe. Annatto is native to this regions. It grows really well. Actually, it grows really well in areas where cacao also grows really well. For this reason, in those areas of Guatemala, it was very normal from very ancient times to add annatto paste to cacao. Annatto paste was not only used as a recipe to mix with cacao and other foods as well, but it was also used as a natural dye. So be careful with it in your kitchen or with your clothes because that's not coming out ever again. If you spill it by accident or something, it will stain things. So it's used as a natural dye. And I was researching annatto and I was surprised to see that it has so many health benefits. So firstly, annatto is antioxidant. Mm. Cacao also is full of antioxidants. So today we're having a little bit of an antioxidant bomb. And natto is also anti-inflammatory, which is great because if you know anything about inflammation, is you don't want inflammation in your body for too long. That is the source of a lot of illness. It's also antimicrobial. It is anti-cancer. Ironically, it is good for eye health. And the reason I say it's ironic is because bats uh, are blind, right? And bats are the Nahual of Acabal. There's two lessons in that. Well, there's one big lesson in that when it comes to bats, and is that Acabal are the people who have to pay not so much attention to what they see with their eyes, but they have to listen more to their intuition. Acabal has an excellent intuition, but funnily enough, the medicine of today is actually good for eye health. So I always found that interesting. Additionally, is really good for your digestive health because it's full of fiber. It's good for the eye health because it contains a lot of how do you call these things? Carotenoids. It's similar to what's in carrots. It's also good for wound healing. It has a lot of calcium. So, in that sense, it's good for the strength and the health of your bones. It's also good with stomach issues. It can fight heartburn. It can help soothe your stomach if you have a stomach ache or if you have cramps. And that is good for that. And it's also good for kidney health. It's antibacterial. It is a diuretic. It's very medicinal, annatto. So I hope you didn't have such a hard time finding it. Somebody in the challenge said if you live in the States, that Hispanic markets are a really good place to find annatto in case you didn't find it and you still want to try to find it for next Acabal. Um, but yeah, that's the recipe of today. So go balance your duality, go switch your coffee for a cup of cacao instead, go and listen to your intuition, keep eyes open for opportunities that may come into your life today because Acabal brings a lot of opportunities always. One warning about that though, Acabal brings a lot of opportunities, but Acabal also teaches us to not be impulsive, to not go for the shiniest object very quickly because that can betray us. Acabal shows us to go for the smartest option and to take our time to make decisions when it comes to opportunities because sometimes we jump for this shiny object rather than the smartest thing. But keep an eye open for opportunities today, balance your duality, and enjoy your cacao. And have a nice rest of your day. Have a good day and see you tomorrow for day 10. Bye, guys. Have a nice day.